Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today is another episode of duping new palettes with makeup I already own. I have an entire playlist of these videos, but today's topic of duping and conversation is the new Pat McGrath Mothership Rose Decadence palette. So this is one of her 6-pan palettes. I do have one of those 6-pan palettes myself. This is the Mothership Sublime Bronze Ambition palette. And one key difference between this palette and the new Rose Decadence palette, besides the actual shades, is the packaging. This is a little bit of annoying packaging because it has this little rubber band, which I never attach, and you have to open it up like a little trifold. Luckily, the new palettes, like the Star Wars 6-pan palette and this Rose Decadence 6-pan palette, open like normal palettes do, which that's like the norm for a reason, you know? It just opens up like, you know, like that. If this is your first time seeing one of these videos of mine, or if this is your first time seeing a video of mine, I hope you will consider subscribing before you go. But if this is your first time seeing one of these videos of mine, I look at a new palette that's beautiful, stunning, tempting, gorgeous, and the one that I want, and convince myself that I don't want it, or I'll always want it, but convince myself that I don't need it by going through palettes within my own collection and finding those shades. Because by the time you have a palette collection of my size, which is around like 30 to 40 palettes, I pretty much have most shades, you know? I'm aware that Pat McGrath has an exceptional formula, and the point of this video or this exercise is not to say you don't ever need to buy Pat McGrath because you can get the same thing for cheaper. That's not what this video is. The purpose of this exercise is to exercise restraint and also just, you know, hold yourself back for a second and think rationally to yourself, and oftentimes that's enough to prevent you from being wasteful. If you want to buy this palette, even though it's $65 for the formula, the brand, the color scheme, you know, you do you. I'm not telling you what to do. I like to challenge myself in these videos to find as many shades from one palette as possible to kind of keep it as close to like an actual dupe. For this video, I found 3 out of the 6 shades from one palette. And I say palette because the item that I found those 3 shades from is actually a trio, and the shades just happen to line up really well in a formula that I very much enjoy. So in this video, the structure is going to be, first I'm going to show you all of the swatches of all of the dupe shades together, so you can kind of compare that image to a comparison image of either the brand's swatches or another YouTuber who already made a video on the actual palette, because let's be honest, sometimes Pat McGrath's official swatches are not the most reliable. After the swatches, I'm going to go through each of those 6 shades and show you where I pulled that from, and also the live swatch of that shade. Now for the altogether swatches, you may have already seen it on my arm as I've been moving about in this intro, but here are all their swatches. Look at them in their glory. And I'm also comparing these to the swatches done by Kinky Sweat in her video with the actual Pat McGrath palette. One thing to note about one of these shades is this pink one. I know that mine is brighter than Pat McGrath's corresponding shade. I made the decision to still include this shade for the sake of including all the shades from that little eyeshadow trio, and I haven't even told you what that is yet. That is the Kaja Beauty Bento Stack in the shade Hella Azalea. Yes, I'm aware that this is brighter than the actual. Don't come for me. All right, so I just already spoiled 3 of the 6 shades, but let me just go in order. I love doing these videos on 6-pan eyeshadow palettes in particular because that means it's a shorter video for y'all and a shorter video for me to film and edit and swatch. Now going one by one through the shades, the first shade on the top left of the Rose Decadence palette is Pink Champagne, and that is described as a warm frosted pink. My corresponding shade is from the Kaja Beauty Bento trio in Hella Azalea, and it's the top shade called Celestial Petal. This is quite an icy pink. This shade and the bottom purple shade I immediately thought of when I saw Kinky Sweat swatches of the original palette. The formula, by the way, of these Beauty Bento trios, if you haven't tried it, It took me like a year and a half to, for some reason, convince myself to spend the $21 to get one of these, because I know it's like $7 per single, like 3 times 7 is $21. But I don't know why I couldn't get myself to buy this for the longest time, but I really do enjoy this. I have it in Hella Azalea and also in Orange Blossom. Here is the swatch of Celestial Petal. I also go over that swatch with another layer so you can see how it builds up. The second shade in the Rose Decadence palette is Peach Dusk, which is described as a pink coral matte. My collection corresponding shade is from this trio again, and this is the shade Ruby Skies. Here is the first swatch. I am actually very pleasantly surprised by the matte formula of these. As you can see in the swatch, it's very smooth, and these kind of bright colors are not the easiest to formulate, but they work really well. By the way, I am using the 3 shades from this trio for my entire eye look today. It's just this in the crease, and then the purple on the outer edge, and the top pink all over the lid and dragged along my lower lash line. All right, now for the third shade, which is one that I pulled from another palette within my collection. The third shade is Fuchsia Flame, described as a warm pink duochrome with a purple fuchsia flash. And my shade is from my Juvia's Place The Saharan palette, this bottommost shade called Fula. This is one of my favorite shades in this entire palette, or my entire collection. It's like a very hot pink, hot pink. As you can see in the swatch, the formula of Juvia's Place metallics are absolutely unreal, out of this world. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you watch a good amount of beauty YouTube, so you've already heard people talk about the Juvia's Place formula, but it really doesn't disappoint. I think it lives up to all the hype. The order I'm talking about these shades is actually not row by row, but I'm going like around in a loop. The reason I'm doing it in that order is because that's the order that Kinky Sweat did her swatches, so that my swatches would line up with hers. The fourth shade, which is the one on the very right of the second row, is Golden Honey, described as a light antique gold bronze. This shade I actually pulled from one of my Pat McGrath palettes, so I could have a shade that is actually like a formula dupe. Not really a dupe, it's a shade that is the same formula as would be in the Rose Decadence palette. So the shade I picked is this lightest gold here, and this shade is called Guilt Trip. I cannot deny that the formula of Pat McGrath shimmers are really good. The fifth shade in this palette is called Scandalous, which is described as a rose bronze metallic. And that I have from my Huda Beauty Rich Nude Obsessions palette. And the shade I picked is this top right one. I don't think these have shade names, but here is a top right shade within the Huda Beauty Rich Nude, ooh, that was a burp. Rich Nude Obsessions palette. Dude, I'm like so familiar with my eyeshadow palette collection now, especially through doing these videos, that when I look at a swatch, I can see the same shade within my mind that I have. The sixth and last shade is Hedonistic Rose, which is described as a mid-toned pink mauve. So my dupe, which is the last one from this trio, is this third shade called Major Grape. And again, this matte is a very surprisingly good formula for this kind of shade. There's the first swatch, and then the second building it up a bit. Those are the 6 shades. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, especially because these videos get the most thumbs downs and it makes me really sad. I hope you enjoyed this video, that it entertained you for a few minutes of your day today. Remember that y'all are my treasure. Find the beauty in every day, but most importantly, be kind to yourself. I will see you in my next video. Bye!